Good morning, YouTube. Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Hopefully, you guys are getting prepared if you're anywhere between Appalachiacola and Tampa. This is becoming more and more urgent by the moment. With each scan, the forecast intensity increases. We're now looking at a major hurricane potentially making landfall here between the Big Bend and the western half of the peninsula of Florida. This is already looking like it's continuing to strengthen pretty rapidly because you can see this ball of convection, these little high cloud tops here that are represented by these bright white and even somewhat, I guess you would call that magenta-ish, kind of pinkish colors going on here. This is increase in thunderstorm activity and strong ones that are reaching up to about probably at least 30, 40,000 feet plus easily, maybe even 50 to 60. Hard to say exactly just based off satellite alone. But either way, the storm is strengthening. We're expecting it to become a hurricane by this afternoon today. I think it'll probably reach it before we get to noon. This is my honest opinion. It could even happen by this 7 o'clock advisory. But this storm is rapidly intensifying here. You can see these areas in the pink here. We already have hurricane watches in effect here. This means we could experience hurricane conditions within 72 hours or less. And also, another thing that needs to be noted are the threats in general. We have storm surge, and this is unfortunately in a very prone area for it. We also have the threat for tornadoes. We also have the threat for rainwater flooding as well. And then also, a little bit more of an underlying threat here is once this makes landfall, this is going to end up going towards Jacksonville, maybe even towards Brunswick, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston. And what will happen here is the first part of that storm may end up pushing storm surge in, but as the storm passes, it's going to try to push that storm surge out, but it's almost going to be trapped with that rainwater here, and the threat of flooding also is going to be pretty significant across this region here between Charleston and Savannah, Brunswick, and maybe even Jacksonville here. So I'm very concerned about this region as well. Landfalling impacts aren't always the only impacts to look out for. You don't have to necessarily be in the eye of the storm in order to have big problems emerge here. So I'm going to show you a couple of graphics and we'll go on from that point. So here's what we're looking at right now as far as the current track. We've noticed a little bit of a trend to the south and east a little bit. We're still seeing Appalachiacola in the picture, but we're starting to see a little bit closer towards the southern end of the Big Bend here, a little bit more towards the peninsula, which could be a nightmare scenario here. With it being a little bit further to the north, this could increase the storm surge for areas to the south as well. I mentioned this last year when Ian was coming through. We might have a situation like that, but I'm not saying that this is guaranteed to happen. But the storm surge may be even worse than before, with the storm being even weaker than Ian could be. Not to say that it couldn't strengthen more, but it's going to be hard to figure all of this out because the track is still uncertain, and ultimately the impacts are still uncertain due to intensity uncertainties as well. But watches and warnings are already in effect, so really today is your day to act now. Storm has started to move now, whereas yesterday it was nearly stationary. It's at 7 miles an hour. So maybe if this speeds up, it may not be as bad. Let's hope that that's the case because that'll mean less time for it to strengthen. But we'll have to see how things play from that point. So here are our storm surge warnings. But we already have, storm surge watches. These will be upgraded to warnings most likely. This exists all the way from Tallahassee, like I said before, all the way down, even towards Naples at this point now. So a lot of areas under the gun here. You should be definitely taking heed to those evacuation orders. If you are in that area, you need to go. That's the best thing. That's the best advice you can get so far. Like I said, threat for flash flooding also is incredibly high, and as mentioned by myself, WPC has also issued a moderate risk already within the next 5 days for these regions from Charleston, Savannah, Jacksonville, and even stretching as far north as Wilmington, North Carolina here. So we need to be making sure that we are staying weather aware here. You have to evacuate. Do everything that you can to get out. That's really the best thing that you can do. As far as storm surge is concerned, with this being a major hurricane, unfortunately, it looks like we could get some major surge here across the Big Bend between the Aquila River and Chaso Chasahowitzka. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But as much as I'd like to be laughing about that, I'm serious about this. This is no joke, guys. Also, the threat of storm surge inundation here is pretty significant, especially along that same area that we were just discussing here. Any of these areas in the red particularly, we could see that greater than 9 feet above the ground, which could have devastating effects potentially. So, again, like I said, let's make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do here. Another thing to make note of is the severe weather potential and the wind speeds as well. Probability of tropical storm force winds as of now, no real way to look at it at the moment from hurricane force winds as of yet, as it's not a hurricane, so I didn't feel appropriate for it to be the case to look at it here. But probabilities are already going to be starting, I would say, as soon as tomorrow morning, maybe even tomorrow afternoon. As this thing strengthens, the wind field's going to increase too. We're most likely going to see at least 60 miles per hour probably from tomorrow afternoon onward. And probably feeder bands will start to come in which the tornado threat will increase. Speaking of which, this leads me into the next part of this video, which is around mainly the tornado threat here. As we all know, with tropical systems, the threat for tornadoes also increases with those feeder bands that are on the right front quadrant. Today, threat's pretty mitigated, mainly looking at wind and hail, of course, but when we get to day 2, we have the slight risk, and look where it is. Not a coincidence there at all. And there's the verification of that. The 5% area between Appalachiacola, Tampa, and areas off to the south here, we need to be on the lookout. These tropical supercells will come in, quickly produce. Normally they're spin-ups, but they can do a lot of damage in a short period of time before lifting. And then on day 3, there's also a slight risk, and this time it starts to include some of the other aforementioned areas from earlier. Large chunk of coastal South Carolina here, Georgia, and eastern Florida, which would include Jacksonville, Daytona Beach in this one, with the tornado threat. Can't look at the exact hazard at the moment because we're past the 48-hour mark on this, but we'll probably see this change by tomorrow morning. I'll probably actually have a video going live tonight. Well, not even a video. We're probably going to do a stream tonight where we'll discuss the hazards in a little bit greater detail from this point. Got to get ready for work. You see me in my work uniform now, actually, so hurry up and try to get this video put together, and you probably will see it by 9 this morning. I'm recording this at like 6 something right now, but anyway, hope you guys take care, stay weather aware, and I'll see you this afternoon. This has been Metalhead Weather in. Till then.